بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم سلم من الشيطان الرجيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صلى الله تعالى على خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا رحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك الخير الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين ومن بدله بعدما سمعه فإنما اسمه على الذين يبدلونه إن الله سميع عليم صدق الله العظيم. Believers, it is decreed for you when death approaches one of you and he leaves wealth to make a testament in favor of the parents and the relatives fairly and correctly, a duty upon the righteous. And then whoever changes it after he has heard it, the guilt is upon those who change it. Allah is all hearing and all knowing. These are two verses, 180 and 181 from Surah Baqarah. There is, if not a lot, some confusion amongst Muslim families about this whole concept of will and wasiyah. And even in those families who may know something about it, there is a major problem in following the rules of this wasiyah, causing lots of problems. If these rules are not properly understood and followed, lots of in-family fights and legal battles may result. As well, not following these rules is considered a major sin, as it may deprive some members of the family from their legitimate right to receive a share of this inheritance. I'm going to ask you a question. Those of you who are present here, and those of you who may know others, what happened in case if one of your parents passed away? How was the inheritance dealt with? Would somebody like to share with me? If you have this situation in your home when one of your parents passed away, what happened after? Anybody? Everybody did the right thing, that means. You know, this is a major issue. People come to shuyukh, and I deal with this situation, so people come to me and say, Dr. Sadiq, we have this situation, my father passed away, and there was no distribution of his assets, and everybody just sat on it, and now the situation is that my brother has passed away, and some other people have passed away, and now we don't know what to do with this wasiyah thing, with this inheritance thing. Some people don't deal with it until even generations passed away. And then it becomes a major problem to figure out how to determine whose right was what in terms of all the assets, wealth that was left by different people who passed away. Not following this wasiyah is a major sin. Why is a major sin? Is because it deprives people from their lawful rights. If you deprive a person of his or her rightful right, it's a major sin. and you and I will be held accountable for it. But this is a very common practice amongst the Muslims, those who know the rules and those who don't know the rules, to just completely ignore this. The rules about wasiya is a major contributor to the Muslim economic system and Muslim social welfare system. Most people do not realize it. This is why when I was reading the verses of Baqarah after what we left before the Ramadan, these verses came about and I thought it's so important that to talk about it and clarify as to what is this wasiya all about. What the verse that I just read was the very first two verses of wasiya revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Baqarah. There is no further clarification or explanation of how this has to be dealt with. What was happening before was in Arab culture, when somebody passed away, the male children or the male relatives will just take over everything. So far so that even in some cases, the wives of the deceased were inherited as well. And there was a major injustice that was taking place in the society at that time. So when this verse was first revealed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advised the believers to make sure that before they take over everything, that they have to give the due share of the inheritance to the parents and to the relatives. But no specific amounts were mentioned. Soon after, in Surah Nisa, in about 5 to 7 verses, a complete detailed guidance and rules were brought down to the believers. And we'll talk about it. But let me explain to you something. It is a very special blessing for us being Muslims that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us guidance about every aspect of our life. This is why Islam is not just a religion. Islam is not just the code of and the ways of how to worship. Islam is a whole lifestyle. It guides you from the simplest thing to the biggest thing in everybody's life that all of us will go through, that people have been going through all their lives through the history, and how to properly, rightfully deal with this. Unlike Islam, if you look at Judaism and Christianity, in Old or New Testament, there is no mention. There's no mention about any rules about this very important social needs. Subsequently, years after, Jewish law devised some rules in this regard. So the Jewish law, as I understood it, states that only male children can inherit. And also, the oldest will take it all. The girls will not take anything. And small children will not get anything. Only adult child or children will get it. Girls will not get anything. Parents will not get anything. On the other hand, Christianity left the whole matter of inheritance upon the individual freedom. You can give it to whoever you want, it's your money. So you know that in this Western culture we see that people sometimes leave their whole inheritance to a pet. A dog gets the whole inheritance, or a maid servant gets the whole inheritance, or they can give it to whoever, or just dump it and not give it to anybody. So it was completely left upon the individual's desire as to what they want to do with their money and their wealth. It's their business. Religion has nothing to do with it. In comparison, see how specifically this issue has been dealt with in Islam. Now I'm going to read you just the translation of the verses of Surah Nisa. Please bear with me and please listen carefully. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded, for men is a share of what the parents and close relatives leave. And for women is a share of what a parent and close relative leave, be it a little or more. But it's an obligatory share. They must be given that share, period. Second verse. And when other relatives and orphans and the needy are present at the time of division, then provide for them something of the estate and speak to them the words of appropriate kindness. It's a very important verse, which I would explain the importance of in a minute. So there are some prescribed shares that they must be given, those people must be given the prescribed amount of a fixed amount of shares that Allah said they should have. But when the family is dividing up the wealth, and some poor relatives, some poor people show up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give them to some as well and be kind to them. There's no share specified. I'm going to explain how we're going to do this. And let those executors and guardians fear injustice, as if they themselves had left weak offsprings behind and feared for them. So let them fear Allah and speak words of appropriate justice. In other words, those who are left behind to execute the wealth or to distribute the wealth must remember they are accountable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be fair and not to be unjust in terms of what Allah has decreed about whose share is what. Allah instructs you concerning your children. For the male, what is equal to the share of two females? I'm going to explain that as well in a minute. Allah instructs you concerning your children. For the male, what is equal to the share of two females? But if there are only daughters, two or more, for them is 2/3 of one's estate. And if there's only one, for her is half. And for one's parents, to each one of them is 1/6 of the estate if he left children. But if he had no children and the parents alone inherit from him, then for the mother is 1/3. No mention of the father. Keep that in mind. If he had no children and the parents alone inherit from him, then for his mother is 1/3. And if he had brothers or sisters, for his mother is 1/6, after any bequest he may have made or debts. Your parents or your children, you know not which of them are nearest to you in the benefit. These shares are obligations imposed by Allah. Indeed, Allah is ever knowing and wise. If you have any questions, keep in your mind, and I'll come to the questions, inshallah. You get 1/2 of what your wives leave behind. So the husband get 1/2 of the wives leave behind if they had no children. If they had children, you would get 1/4 of what your wife would leave, after fulfilling any bequest and paying off the debts. They get 1/4 of what you have left. So if you die, Your wife, if there were no children, would take one fourth after fulfilling any bequest and paying off the debts. If a man or a woman leaves neither parents nor children, but has a brother or sister, each one of them gets one sixth. And if there are more siblings, they share one third, after fulfilling any bequest and paying off debts without any prejudice. This is the will from Allah. Allah is knowing and forgiving. These are the basic rules Allah explained in Surah Nisa. And there's one more verse at the end, which I'm not going to go into right now. The fuqaha and the scholars of Islam from the time of Rasulullah and Sahaba provided very clear and very comprehensive guidelines about any situation that may occur in the distribution of wealth. Books have been written about this. It's a complicated issue because everybody's circumstances are different. But the basic rules will always follow. Wasiya, although translated in English as a will, but it is not will at all. It is completely different than what the people here call a will. The word will implies that an individual is free to will his assets to anyone he or she wants, like in Christianity. So why do we call it a will? We should. We should not call it a will. But because we live in this country, and in this country it is known as will, that's why we use the terminology will. But even if you suddenly died and did not leave any instructions about your wasiyah, the family members, your family members and elders are obligated. Even if you did not leave any wasiyah, you suddenly died, your elders and family members are obligated to follow the rules prescribed by Allah about the distribution of the deceased person. There's no way out of it. Not only that, if somebody made a wasiyah and wrote things in it that were unjust against the law, against the Sharia, Allah gives the authority to other members of the family to correct it. Allah also gives the authority to the qadi, to the judge, the authority to correct it. Now, here's the problem that I see very often. In this culture, if you have written a will, a signed will, and the signed will has been witnessed and hopefully notarized, it becomes a legal document. It may be according to Islam. But if your family members choose not to follow it, they can take it to court. And it's happening. If a son or a daughter feels it is unfair, they are treated unfairly in the will, in Islamic Sharia, they can take it to the local court. Your will is null and void. The law of the land will apply. It's very important to remember. Rasulullah ﷺ mentioned, if you have anything that you're going to leave behind, they may be as little as 3 cardamoms. Very little amount. Make a wasiyah. It is an order. You are required to leave a wasiyah to stop your family members from fighting with each other afterwards. But please remember, before you make your wasiyah, before you write your wasiyah, Make sure that you have all your family members on board who are admitting to it, who are agreeing to it. If they are not on board, and if you made them seer, somebody's going to fight it. And you're going to end up, the whole thing is going to end up in court. And years of fighting and paying money to all the lawyers about this. You need to make sure. Also, you need to make sure you cannot deprive someone from the prescribed shares given to him by Sharia. You cannot do that. By the way, those of you who may not know, I have been writing these wills for 30 years for people. People send me these wills from all over North America. There's no lawyers involved. The wasiya is a very simple document. The wasiya is a very simple document. My will is no more than a page and a half. It does not need to, the will itself does not need to contain all the details of all your money, that goes into separate appendices that you can attach to it, which will keep changing. So I would make the will and I would send a letter with it, make sure it's all correct, the addresses are correct, the names are correct, the spellings are correct. Make sure you sign it, you witness it, you notarize it, check with the lawyer if you need to, and then on top, add 2 documents to it. This wasiya that I made for you should and don't need to change until one or the other of the members of the family who was a legitimate heir dies or and members ended. Then you need to change it. But outside of it, you don't need to change it. And there's a clause that goes into that will that says, if there is any change in the numbers of people who have a right to inherit from him, changes, either decreases or increases, then this will, clause number 4, the distribution, have to be redone according to the laws of Islam. That clause is in the will. It's very simple. The assets and the liabilities will keep changing. There's no reason to put them in the main document of the will. Now let me explain something else. One time, a man came to me, filled out the form that I sent out to make the will, and said, I don't want to give anything from my inheritance to my wife. I said, but you wanted to make an Islamic will? He said, yeah, but we have never gotten along. That has nothing to do with the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you did not get along with your wife, or if you did not get along with your son, or one of your son has been disrespectful to you, you cannot cut him out. You cannot cut anybody out, whether you like it or not like it. The only time you will cut somebody out from your will is if one of your inheritor became a murtad, became a kafir, left Islam. He is no longer going to receive anything from your inheritance. Or if a child murdered his father, he will not get anything from the inheritance. But outside of a couple of those things, you cannot leave anybody out of your wasiyah who Allah has given a right to receive from you. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Is it clear? Now, yes.
It's also true that if you offer or if you don't follow the guidelines,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You will be accountable. If you did not, it's a major sin, like I said. You will be held accountable. There's no two ways about it. Any other questions? Now, as I said, the wisdom behind this very descriptive explanations and the guidance about the rules, the inheritance rules, is twofold. Number one, so the wealth of a person does not get wasted. People spend a lifetime making a living and saving money. And people may have saved up hundreds of thousands of dollars. If a proper method was not there to distribute this inheritance, those assets, most likely they will be wasted. And the waste of all of these efforts is also haram. Which is why Allah said that if you waste your money, you are the brothers of shayateen. It is not permitted. Second, the inheritance guarantees that the rest of the family is going to be taken care of. They will not have to go beg and borrow and be homeless and not have anything to go living. That they will be taken care of. Third, it also provides for a social service, which is where the 1/3 comes in. Allah has given us a freedom in this whole rule. You have the freedom to will. Now we are going to use the will. It's not wasi anymore. You have the freedom to will anybody you like from the 1/3 of the net asset, unless you include a person who is already going to receive a share in it. A person who already would have a share in it, you cannot give him anything more. That's it. Now, 1/3 is a big chunk of money. 1/3 is a big chunk of money. Why has Allah given you that permission? Because, yes, absolutely. Two reasons. Number one, sometimes family members who will otherwise not receive anything from your inheritance are poor and needy. And we all have those family members. We all have such family members who are poor and needy, but they will not receive anything from my money if I die. I need to be kind to make sure that they are taken care of as well. And those will come first. And then I may choose to do something like the brother said, invest some money in doing sadaqah jariyah. Sadaqah jariyah is what? A sadaqah, a charity that you give, which will go after you for a long way. For example, a child wants to go to madrasa to become an hafiz, for example. But he's poor. His parents cannot afford him to pay the very heavy fees of the madrasa to go and for him and to receive the knowledge of the deen, or become a hafiz. Giving him the money to go and do it is a great sadaqah jariyah. Because for as long as he would live, he would benefit from this knowledge and he would spread that knowledge. He would implement that knowledge in his life, and everybody who would learn and implement the knowledge from him, all of their rewards you will continue to get even after you die. Or, for example, in some places, digging a well where there's no water. Some places, putting some trees up, fruit trees up. As long as that fruit trees grow, and the birds and the animals and the people will drink from that well and from eat that tree, you will be keep receiving the benefits of it after your death. That's what Sadaqah Jariyah is. But you know what? Here's the sad part. In the last 30 years that I'm doing this, not even 1% will anything from the one third. Not 1%. And what we don't realize is, like Allah said in the previous verses, you don't know who of your children and parents are beneficial for you. And I'm going to have a news for you. Children who receive all these bunches of lots of money often gets wasted. Very often it gets wasted. Why? Because they did not earn it. You value what you earn, what you have worked hard for. What comes for free, you don't value it. You waste it. And the parents not only don't get any reward for it, they get azab for it, for their kids wasting up all this money. And yet, I don't know why. Forget about one third, from one fourth, that people can give to some poor relatives, some poor friends, some poor anybody, because sadaqah can be given even to non-Muslims. You don't need to have Muslims around. It can be given to a non-Muslim. And there are lots of poor around here, everywhere. Why would we not have a big heart to say they need it? My kids are working, my kids are married, my kids have their own families, they're all well doing. I don't need to give them more. Instead, I'm going to give to somebody who needs it, who is going hungry, who does not have a place to live, who is always begged to be able to survive. Why won't I do it? And I'm not sure why we don't think about it. Yes.
So if the original one third, we divided it,
Yes, it has to be divided then.
and that can be given to the people who already have.
Then the whole net asset becomes the asset that should be divided. The one third freedom is only for the person who is still alive. After his death, because the freedom is not yours to give that one third, it is his freedom to give one third, not yours. So the whole amount left over has to be distributed according to the Wasiya rules. One more thing. Look at the justice in this whole thing. Only the net amount of the assets can be distributed. And what does that mean? That means if the person had any debts, that means if a person had any existing agreements which involve money, they have to be paid first. Not only that, the burial expense have to be paid from his assets. So somebody dies here and the masjid says it's $10,000 to bury the person. Or it's $15,000 to bury the person. Now everybody's saying, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? We're going to get the $15,000. You pay that money from his assets. The burial expense has to come from the assets of the deceased. Nobody follows that either. As a matter of fact, they think it's insult. if they took any money from the father who passed away to bury him. It's not. It is a rule. It is the rule. Next, why men have been favored to receive twice the share of a daughter, a girl. Absolutely. Males, the male members of the family are obligated to look after, to provide for their parents, their sisters, widowed sisters, divorced sisters. They are accountable, obligated to look after them. That's why they need more money. Girls, the daughters, because they have been made, like responsibility of either their fathers or their husbands. Because they've been made, they are the parents or the brothers are responsible to look after them. They don't need that much money. But what's happening now? Let's go to the reality. Sisters are very unhappy. I hear them coming to me and saying Islam is unfair. Islamic rules are unfair. Why are they unfair? Because why is it that I'm getting half the share of my brother, he gets double the share of mine, and yet I'm supposed to look after the parents. My brothers are married, and their wives don't want have anything to do with his parents. Your parents can live with us. They cannot live with us. They get upset if their husband sends any money to the parents. I deal with these fights all the time. My husband is sending out the money to his parents. My husband is sending the money to the brothers. Why doesn't his brothers do anything about it? Why does he have to do it all by himself? And I says, none of your business. I'm very clear about it. It's none of your business. Is he looking after your needs? Yes. Shut up. Don't complain. What we have to say for the children, it's his responsibility, not yours. He has to figure it out. You have no right to stop him to help his parents, help his brothers, help his sisters if they need it. You have no right to say anything about it. These fights are very common in our families, very common in all Muslim culture. Males are obligated, and wallahi lazim, they will be held accountable also. Some brothers, and I talk to those brothers, I say, why are you not looking after your parents? Oh, well, we live far and we have children, and my wife doesn't get along with my parents, and I don't want to ruin my marriage. My sister is doing a good job, but they are not giving the sister the money to look after them. They are not giving the money to the sister to look after the parents. And I command those families, and I know them personally, where a wife is keeping the parents or the leftover mother or the father with her in her family, and their husbands willingly take responsibility for them and support the wife. I salute them. These are not uncommon either. You will see this in this community. And I would put shame on those boys who, if they had any sense, any Islamic knowledge, or any sense of accountability before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who will not be able to look after their parents or one of the parents, to be able to say to the sister, if they are sisters, Please, under the circumstances I'm in, I'm not able to look after the parents. If you look after them, I give you my share to look after them. How many would do that, do you think? How many would do that? Zero. They will stand up and say, it's my right to have double the amount that sister does. But what about your accountability for it? These are all the problems we have about this situation right now. We cannot ignore it. We cannot turn our eyes from it. We are going to be held accountable. And this is why this topic was so important. Any final questions before I end? Does it all make sense? Please take it home. Please write your wasiyah. Please make sure that you are, as a father, as a mother, sitting down with your children, pointing out to them their responsibilities, pointing out to them why this wasiyah is there the way it is, pointing out to the boys, remember, you're going to get twice because you will be responsible after my death about your mother and your divorced sisters or your widowed sisters and her kids. Remember, you are going to be responsible for it, which is why we are getting double the share. If you won't take this responsibility, you're going to be held accountable to Allah. You need to discuss this with your family members before you write the wasiyah.
The, the child, what will the child do? Does it feel, does it will, is there any other?
No. Every member, if the person is not able to look after himself because of the physical handicap or mental handicap, becomes the responsibility of the rest of the male members of the family. Simple as that. And like I said, there's individual circumstances that vary. And it's a very complicated situation. You cannot all work it out. See, when I do it, if it is very complicated situation, I say, go to a sheikh. But I've been doing it for 30 years. And it's not a very complicated thing. Because most of the families have boys and the girls. And that makes it very easy. Some families don't have any boys, only girls. Some families have girls and no parents or no father. Then it just keeps extending to the next level. There are 3 levels of inheritance. There are those who are called in the middle, in the very, first circle, which get their share first. After their shares, you go to the next level. Then you go to the next level. If there's nothing left after this first layer, nobody gets anything else. I had written a booklet about it many years ago. It was in Urdu language. It was a very simple 25 page booklet. But it's simple. The thing is, understanding it is simple. Living it is not. If you understand it and don't live by it, you may not even know it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us, help us. Give us the wisdom to understand our accountabilities in this world and in life after. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam. سبحان ربي العلي على الوهاب ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم رحيم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم توفنا مسلمين والحقنا بالصالحين غير خزايا والمفتونين ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم